So I'm going to start this week by reading the Substack article that I wrote. Did we create this collective manifestation, a thesis? I'm going to read this article and then we'll talk about it. And so here we go. It starts with a quote by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. In 2013, I was still at a place in my journey where I was looking for permission for my desires to be allowed, for my faith to be deconstructed. Danielle Laporte had just launched a book called The Desire Map, in which she proposed similar thesis to the one echoed by Amanda Francis a few years ago. Our desires are good guidance. And it helped me to chart a course toward the life I have today. That same year, I dropped out of seminary. 2 years later, my own therapist would encourage me to become a counselor. I manifested my career, my kids, my partner, my PhD program, because I was clear about what I wanted and I was unafraid to go after it. Well, mostly unafraid. All right, I was anxious AF, but off I went because mom had to pay the bills. Over the years, manifestation has become a huge part of my life and my philosophy. Although I know many scoff at the idea, in the last decade, I've witnessed a cultural shift. Manifestation is trending, and that presents its own set of problems, but I digress. Whatever the downsides, it means that people are considering that they might have agency in their own lives. They're not succumbing to the belief that they are victims of circumstances or their personality. And I think that's a good thing. Some manifestation teachers propose that we create all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is understandably problematic. And over the years, as I've shared the concept, I've landed on a particular way of working with what I call trauma-informed manifestation. Of course, you didn't manifest your child abuse. You didn't manifest your family having to leave your home country and travel to a brand new land only to be targeted by systemic racism. You didn't manifest losing a loved one. You didn't manifest food insecurity. If I were in a session with someone, I'm a therapist, I might say, after giving them adequate time to grieve and somatically process the trauma, I might say that this happened, was horrific, but you didn't choose it. You didn't choose it, but you get to choose what you do next. I would talk about the systemic and institutional issues at play. I talk a lot about racism, sexism, ageism, and prejudice in sessions. If my client is BIPOC, we talk about their experience, and I acknowledge the limitations of my experience as a white person. If my client is white, we talk about our biases and our prejudices. Is that how you say that? Prejudices? Yes, I think so. And how to be better allies. I think I started this Substack because I wanted to have these conversations with more than just my clients. Because I think that all of this has to do with what I would call collective manifestation. In other words, you didn't manifest your trauma, but that doesn't mean that we didn't. If the issues are systemic, collective, and cultural, then that means that we all played a part in creating them. It also means that together we have the opportunity to change them. I suppose now is a good time to recount a weird meditation that I had a few mornings ago. Stay with me. I closed my eyes and I was soaring. It seemed like a past life memory, so I went with it. I meditate every morning, so sometimes my meditations just go wild, and I swear it's like totally sober. It's a cool thing. Meditation is awesome. The message I received was that I was an elder in an ancient community, and I had the ability to shape-shift into a great bird. I was troubled as I recalled a family in my community. It was a mother, a daughter, and a father. The mother's resentment toward the daughter had seeped into everything, wounding them both. The daughter tried tirelessly to appease her mother, but nothing worked. The father never intervened because he feared his wife and he kept silent. In the meditation, I soon understood that I was not only the elder watching this unfold, I was also the mother, I was the daughter, and I was the father. The medicine was in the repair work. It was early enough in our world that the mother was able to accept accountability for the harm she had done. The daughter could forgive and also take ownership of the ways she'd given her power away. The father's work was to admit his complacency for the many times he avoided conflict and protected himself instead of his child. And I, the elder, acknowledge my part in allowing this dynamic to take root in my community. For years, we have, as a collective, manifested by accident. We bought into the lie that there is not enough love or resources for all. We didn't focus on what we wanted. We focused instead on what we thought was necessary, often at the expense of ourselves and others. Racism, sexism, and other isms are patterns we've co-created over time, not something any one person sat down and chose. These shared patterns have resulted in trauma, loss of power, and harm that affects specific bodies and lives. They're a collective manifestation that came at an individual cost. But we contain multitudes. We are the victim, the villain, and the savior. And as we become compassionately aware of the roles we have played, we can shift out of the painful dynamic and assist others in doing the same. When I started my PhD program, the first couple of semesters were a little rough because even in the magical world of open-minded academia, which CIIS definitely is, manifestation was viewed with suspicion. The popular association with cars, expensive purses, and extravagant vacations has done plenty of damage. Maybe it's because I'm a hippie or a social worker, but it's never been about that for me. It wasn't until I was able to articulate this idea of collective manifestation that I gained the confidence to even bring it up in class. I mentioned in my first Substack that things are looking a little bleak at the moment, and you are probably acutely aware. But I don't think that's the whole story. Every heinous thing that is coming to light right now has existed in various forms for ages. The harm to children, the corruption among world leaders, the greed, the violence, the selfish ambition. Astrologer Heather Emsworth argues that it must all come to light to be witnessed, healed, and ultimately transmuted. So now we must ask ourselves, I argue, what have we created? And more importantly, what do we want to create? Our desires are good guidance. My PhD is in transpersonal psychology. Transpersonal means beyond the personal, pointing to the ways our experience can extend into something larger than the individual self, our capacity for connection, meaning, and the good we can do together. It begins with the understanding that we can do better for ourselves, our children, and our communities. Manifestation, in simple terms, is the idea that non-physical things like thoughts, emotions, imagination, and beliefs can have a marked impact on our physical environments. Imagine what we can manifest with conscious, collective intention. Because the truth is, despite how powerless we might feel right now, we are powerful beyond measure. So that was the Substack article that I wrote yesterday. And I'm realizing that that kind of says everything that I wanted to say. So yeah, I feel like the energy of this week has been kind of intense. And it's interesting because I think that for someone like myself who is somewhat sensitive to the energy of the collective, like what's going on, even as it presents in our own lives, like which can sometimes mean that we feel a little more frazzled, or we feel a little more irritable, or we feel a little bit lighter, like whatever kind of is happening. Usually what's happening in our personal lives is also happening in the broader collective. There's this idea of as above, so below, like what is going on within us has implications for the world. And so it may feel like, well, you know what? I don't know what you're talking about, and none of this really matters to me, and maybe it doesn't. And maybe what's going on in your life that you do care about, that is also very important, has implications for the broader world and community. And we don't have to know exactly what that means or how that looks. We just, like, it's about consciousness. It's about what happens if I decide with intention how I want to act in this situation where maybe this person is infuriating me and I'm totally over it. And I don't know if that makes sense, but perhaps it does, and perhaps it was helpful for someone tonight. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say, so I think this will be kind of a short little moment of reading the article, and I'll be back next week. I think I'm going to stick to this kind of like 7:30 p.m. Eastern time timeline, and yeah, we'll get back to it. I hope you have a really good rest of your week and weekend, and I would love to hear how you're doing.